My name's Evan Schwartz. I'm the CEO and founder of Beluga and also Thinkering as of late, which we're so excited about. But we're thrilled to have you here today with Dr. Mara Huber. I've known Mara for quite some time. Her work and mine have always intersected. So I'm so excited for you to listen to her today because I've taken a ton of inspiration and knowledge from her over the years, whether she realizes it or not, in developing not only Beluga, some other properties within education, and definitely a ton of elements within Thinkering as well. She'll dive into her Pearl project framework, which is a major, major inspiration for what this Thinkering program has been built upon. And then we'll go into a few questions, hear from the audience, whoever's on today, if they have any thoughts, ideas. And the big goal of this ultimately is to share Mara's great work, get you familiar with the name and the face, and then hopefully take some elements back that you could implement into your own projects as well. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us all the great things you're working on?
Okay, well, I am delighted to be here. I am a fan of Evan's as well, and so always excited to explore synergies and connect with his amazing network. I thought I would get started by sharing a little bit about myself, but do it a little bit differently. So I took the opportunity to think a little bit about my origin story, which was a really fun exercise that I would suggest you all try. And it got me reflecting a little bit about this sense of entitlement that I have had around education. And it was kind of fun to think about entitlement a little bit differently. My entitlement always sort of focused on this idea that I was entitled to feel challenged. From a very early age, I thought that was the role of education and that I should sort of stretch myself and learn as much as I could and have all these great experiences. And when I didn't get that from education, I grew up in a really small town. I went through public education all the way up through my PhD. When I wasn't challenged, I was able to give that to myself. I pursued a degree, a PhD in cognitive psychology. I think I drove every teacher crazy in my schools trying to get the most that I could out of them. But I managed to really challenge myself, and that has continued to drive my work. And I have to tell you that even though I work at one of the most premier universities, certainly in SUNY and around the country, I still really have this sense of entitlement on behalf of students, thinking that they should all be challenged and that they should all get these really high impact experiences. And I've come to the realization that our education system really isn't challenging students in the way that they need to be in order to support their development, but also to utilize their gifts and talents and drive economic development, but also sustainable development. And that's really sort of at the heart of my work. And that's the reason I have developed systems and tools that I'm excited to share with you with a focus on Pearl. So, to just put it out there in really sort of bold and honest terms, college is not the destination. And I know many of our high schools and our public education and private systems are all focused on getting students into college. And college is important. Education is certainly necessary in many respects, but it does not lead directly to jobs. Credentials do not equal capabilities. And our students are so focused on what they think is the goal that they actually come to us pretty anxious, disconnected, and underprepared. And that is a truth that I think needs to be shared and needs to be unpacked. And that is sort of how I want to frame our conversation. So let's keep going and talk about the biggest question is, what do our students need from us, right? What are we preparing them for? And then what are we preparing them with? Right? So this is both about sort of big picture, but it's also about practice. And this, I think, is an important question or questions to ask ourselves. Okay, so what I want to suggest is that experiences are the new coin of the realm. Maybe they were always the coin of the realm. This is like one of those conversations that Evan and I like to have, right? We go back and think about the whole history of education. But more and more, it is about skills and competencies. And Because of that, experiences are the best way. Experiential learning is the best way to develop skills and competencies, not just skills and competencies, but narratives and confidence and the ability to have self awareness of your strengths, and your abilities, right? We need all of it. We need the actual skills and competencies, but we also need the awareness. And experiential learning is the best path, and there's lots of research around this from a learning standpoint. Just as a level setting, just going to put up sort of this cycle of experiential learning. This is associated with Kolb. I think it's great because what it gets at is this iterative nature of learning. It's not linear. It's not that you're collecting experiences. It's not passive. It's a process that the student goes through. The student is moving from ideas and learning to doing, but it's not just learning through doing, which is what most people think. It's learning through reflecting on doing, right? And integrating what you learn. It's cyclical. And there are lots of opportunities for things to go off the rails. And there's lots of work for teachers, right? Even though this is a student-centered pedagogy. The teachers or the mentors are helping the student move through the cycle, preparing the activities, helping integrate lots of work there. But the students have to activate these experiences. We know that you could design the most amazing project, and if the student isn't engaging, it's not going to be effective, right? And so this is why curiosity is just so hugely important, because it really sort of drives engagement and drives learning. But I've been reflecting a lot on curiosity, and curiosity can be somewhat tricky. It can be fleeting. Yes, it propels change, but it could be performative. It could be self-absorbed, right? Curiosity can be hard to hold on to. Curiosity rooted in care, I am finding, is a little bit more durable, and it's a little bit more powerful because we all have access to care. We know what we care about. If you ask young people what they're curious about, or even old people, sometimes they don't know, especially now, because when you're in fear mode, when you're anxiety mode, when you're in depressed mode, it's hard to access your curiosity. And in many ways, education sort of doesn't help. But care, again, is very accessible. So if we can connect curiosity to care, we got a little bit more to work with. So you're going to see that feature in Pearl and feature in my work. And this idea of connecting with community, because there's a lot to care about community. And a great way to access care is to think about what bothers you, what 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 feels troubling. Those can be very accessible and powerful. So let's keep going. Okay, so Pearl, Evan mentioned Pearl. So excited that you're using Pearl, right? Like, Pearl is one of those things that I developed for my own work and have continued to realize how powerful it is, but it's in how people use it, right? It needs to be translated, and I'll share a little bit of the ways that it's being translated. You can tell I generated this with AI because the bottom is cut off and I didn't have time to fix it. But Pearl is very similar to that cycle, right? So it should look like Kolb's theory in his cycle. The parts that are new or different really are the add value and the leverage. Anytime you look up experiential learning, you're going to find prepare, reflect, and engage. But the add value is actually really powerful. That's my favorite part, because a lot happens when you try to add value as a student or as an adult or as a professional. First of all, it gets you out of yourself and has you focused on something else, which is actually helpful from a cognitive, emotional. It helps students stretch when they're thinking about other people. It connects into care, as I said. And it helps us frame projects around some sort of deliverable. You can have internships, you can have research, you can have service where you're doing something but you don't necessarily have something to show for it, right? So just this idea of creating something that is of value, whatever it is, even if it's hypothetical value, even if it's creating a poster that somebody could see, right? Just that idea of focusing on a deliverable is really powerful. And then it allows us to backward design the projects. So we actually focus on what the deliverable is and then think about the steps to get there. And in project and problem-based learning, if you let the students do some of that work, the more work the students do, the more meaningful the integration and the knowledge creation is going to be. So by connecting them with community, by connecting them with community organizations that are doing the work of sustainable development or some sort of humanitarian work, you can have them add value to the organization or the partner who is adding value to the planet or community. So you can actually create chains of adding value, which is super cool, right? Leveraging is about building. We're terrible at leveraging, probably all of you. We do things and then we move on. Maybe we put it on our resume. Maybe we get a grade or we give a grade and then we move on. And the reality of it is experiential learning is like a well. You can keep going back and you can draw on it and you can build on it. You could even take past experiences and turn them into projects. You can take things that you've been thinking about and ruminating over and feeling bad about and turn them into projects. It's all viable from a learning standpoint. So that is Pearl. Pearl was designed to do a bunch of things at the same time or contiguously. It's designed to help us develop projects so we could use it for developing projects. It's designed to support students in moving through experiential learning, and I can tell you how we do that. It's also designed to help assess because each step of the way the students can do some work that we can sort of see. We could see it over time, but then we can compare. So you could use it for research to compare impacts. And then you can build value around this because when they're done, they can get some sort of a badge or a micro credential or some symbol of what they've done that they can share. And then you can create ecosystems around it. So imagine the student does one project, they earn a badge that symbolizes what they've done. It has the evidence attached to it. And then you could create an ecosystem where badges mean something and projects mean something and they lead to other experiences. And you can track the badges over time. So there's a lot that you can do with Pearl to create these ecosystems. All right, let's go on. So I love trees. I love trees as metaphors. There's a lot. I love metaphors. And Pearl, we can use Pearl in lots of ways. And one is to connect with the local, which is what I've already shared with you. And we could sort of root these projects within what matters. One of my biggest projects right now is working in Nigeria to help overhaul an entire state education ecosystem using Pearl. And they are rooting it in this idea of local solutions to global challenges. Where they are in Enugu, there's clean water is an issue, power is an issue. There's so many challenges, right? And so by rooting the projects in those challenges, but also around solutions and hands-on learning, they're essentially turning all of this into an innovation, an innovation sort of ecosystem, which is great. And as I've mentioned, badges and micro-credentials sort of amplify the power of the system. And that's something that I think you're seeing micro-credentials pop up in higher education as well as outside of education. So that might be something that some of you are interested in exploring. Let's keep going so we can get to the conversation part. So I know enough to be really interested in what you're all doing. And I know that you're using Pearl for your capstone projects. So, without knowing exactly what you're doing, I want to mention that capstones in general, right, are a high impact practice. And they're a great opportunity to connect with your passions so you can learn about what you care about, but certainly also tapping into what students care about, as well as community needs, thinking about real world impact, and then thinking about this output, something that is shareable, something that reflects the learning that has happened, and something that you can really sort of build on. So those are some ideas that I think are really exciting. Next slide, please. So, without again knowing exactly what you're doing, I'm really sort of interested to see how you're mapping your capstone to Pearl. What I will share with you is just a little bit about how we've used it at the University at Buffalo. We sort of prototyped this through our Experiential Learning Network. And we have an online system where any student at our university can browse through projects and then work through the steps of Pearl. And at the minimum, so I'll tell you the minimum of what I would suggest doing. The minimum, we start P preparation with sort of a setting the context for your project or the student's project. Why does it matter? What is the biggest issue? How are you going to situate the project? We also start with setting intentions. We know from experiential learning that there are all sorts of surprises, but if you go in expecting to develop one of or more competencies, we're going to see growth in that. So if you go into a situation that you know is going to be really difficult, and you can tell yourself, oh, I'm going to learn something from this. I know it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to work on my patience and I'm not going to get triggered. Or I'm going to really work on taking criticism because I know I'm going to get just like, destroyed, right? Those types of intentions can actually affect how you approach the situation and what you get out of it. And it's the same with projects. For our global projects, if students go in saying that I know it might be difficult working with people from Africa, right? Who I don't even understand, but boy, I'm gonna be able to talk about that. I'm gonna be able to really talk about communication. We see growth in that area. So we always take the opportunity to have students set intentions in the beginning, do some context setting, do necessary learning, skill development before they get started. So that's what I would suggest up front, doing all that framing work and intention setting. The engage and add value, I would suggest really focusing on the output and how it's going to be meaningful. Think about a theory of change. That's really powerful, right? A theory of change is if I do something, it's going to have some sort of an impact or some sort of importance. Reflection, we step back from projects and then connect them with some of those outcomes that are really important, whether they're professional skills and 21st century learning outcomes, whether there are things that connect with college. I'm working with a high school who they've been doing Pearl projects and they've been connecting them with their theory of a graduate, the portrait of a graduate, and college applications. So you can connect them with things that matter. And then the leveraging is thinking, how would you build on it? So maybe your class is only going to take a small piece of this, but maybe the next class could build. Or maybe you could then think about, remember the iteration. And so at the minimum, you can use Pearl for assessment. You can just simply think about what preparation did I do. You can have your students use Pearl. Lots of things that you could do with it. So I'm interested in hearing sort of how you are thinking about some of these steps in your process, and then thinking about how you're going to leverage it. So LinkedIn is an amazing opportunity for leveraging. I know Evan and I both use LinkedIn extensively. And if you get on my LinkedIn, you'll see lots of my projects and my initiatives that I'm working to leverage to build more capacity. So that's something that we all do, hopefully. And I think I just have a couple more slides. Let's see what's next. So before I sort of open it up and hopefully have some discussion with you, I want to suggest that there really needs to be an experience revolution. I think many of us are sort of involved in that movement. Experiential learning and project-based learning is a solution to a lot of problems that we find ourselves with right now. It is a dynamic bridge between formal education systems, however good or bad they are, and a changing world. And that in doing this work, we need some tools. We need new tools that will allow us to design systems that are robust and scalable. Pearl is one way to do it. There's a million other ways to do it, but it is my hope that at least it's something to get you started and to get practice innovating and thinking about how you can build ecosystems within your own context. And as change makers, it really is about equipping you to equip our students for life and not just getting into college, right? Because there's a lot more than that. And I think the final slide is just an invitation to connect. I am taking my work and just like Evan, trying to find lots of ways to create more opportunity in this space. At my university, I'm now experimenting with my team with generative AI, which is an amazing tool for project-based learning. We have a big Spencer Vision grant to support our work in Nigeria, a Fulbright book, and lots of other tools that are out there to share. So I will stop now and turn it back over to Evan or Jim.
You're the best. We greatly appreciate that. I know that was a quick hitting session for everyone. And again, we'll share these slides out to the group as well. This will be a recorded session, but really what we're focused on now, Mara, and I know we've had countless conversations over the years around this topic. We have this amazing group of educators that have jumped into this first fellowship of Thinkering and trying to figure out, and I heard this from one educator last week. I was on site with them. It's coming from the heart. And I thought that was so meaningful of how we connecting our passions with our community impact. And it was interesting, timely this afternoon, I got another email from a group that said, hey, we're trying to implement this methodology around experiential learning and not even connected to fellowship, but we're really trying to get our students thinking about curiosity and experiential learning and action and impact and all that great stuff that we all know and love. They're hitting the wall. So I think it was really interesting what you said before, young and old, kind of on those two sides of the spectrum. There's some challenges with unlocking that curiosity on an everyday basis. And this is just, open conversation ultimately. There is more trauma I find these days in the classroom than ever before. There's so much thrown at our educators, so much thrown at our kids. How do people fit this in? What do you think that looks like, especially in a traditional K to 12 or even university setting where we have to teach the test and there's only a certain amount of time and there's 30 kids in each classroom. It's really challenging these days. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, I love that I'm going to give you, I think that, yeah, I'm going to give you how they're doing it in Nigeria. And I love that I can focus on Nigeria because it's so low resource and we might be surprised that they're innovating. But they're innovating because they're desperate for change, right? And sometimes that's when innovation happens. What they're doing is they're taking the curriculum, the national curriculum, they're actually using AI to help identify possible local engagement opportunities and examples to insert experiential learning into lessons. So, for example, if you're teaching about biology or you're teaching about the environment, the simple flip of having the students do an activity that focuses on their own environment and what they're seeing can completely be transformative. At UB, we had a class where students were just doing a writing assignment on using a template for a proposal. I zoomed them in with a community organization in Tanzania, and they asked questions and did the proposal for the organization. The simple flip of taking learning or taking an assignment and connecting it to real data, which is available everywhere, or a real place, or the students' experiences can completely change things. And it's not hard to do. It's just that idea of seeing opportunities in places that we don't think of them as being. And I'll tell you, students want these experiences integrated into their education. They don't want they don't want more clubs. I mean, they like them, but they want their learning to be relevant. They want their learning to be connected. And not everything has to be a huge project. Literally, it could be using real data instead of hypothetic things that are sort of abstracted.
Mara, on that side too, and I mean, you may have seen a lot of student projects over the years.
Yeah.
They're more ready than ever before. And I think that that's a toll ultimately at the end of the day that's being taken out in traditional classrooms. Why are kids not coming to school anymore? What are their behavioral issues? There's a reason. They're bored,
Not engaged.
not engaged. And it's a really tough spot. But what do you think is the unlock? Like the really big scalable unlock here?
Yeah, the big scalable unlock is that the teachers have to be excited and curious. You can't skip the teachers. And so the biggest surprise when I work with faculty is that the personal is appropriate, right? We all think education is serious and it can't be personal. Everything's scripted, everything is rubriced, everything has to be set. When teachers are excited, or when teacher you can share or let someone borrow your care space. That's so weird, right? Like if I were to tell you what I care about and let myself get a little bit emotional, you would care in the moment. It doesn't mean that you would become terribly curious, but if you know something's important to me and you care about me, you're going to do something for me, right? And so you see teachers who are effective because they have that connection with their students, right? And it doesn't mean that what the teacher is going through is the same as the student. So I think we have to we have to get more comfortable with care. We have to get more comfortable with curiosity, with vulnerability, with sharing. And those are things that certainly in higher education are sort of anathema, right? Like you're not supposed to share that. But we've stripped things down so much and we've made them so sanitized and taken the context out that they don't really feel that meaningful anymore. So it's not surprising that students aren't engaged. And we have to create spaces for the students to follow what they care. Teachers don't have to micromanage everything. You can give choice to students and still put a little structure around it. You can let students use AI. This is a big topic in higher education in these safe spaces without having to worry and micromanage everything. So it's new territory, I guess.
I love this one. I was on the ground last week at a school district. We've been doing a lot of work with their region. Obviously, in the winter, we pulled about 200 kids, and the inside was all around experiential learning and what does the future look like. And one of the standout questions was about 91% of this group said their favorite way to learn is hands-on projects. The most interesting thing, and this was across K to 12, all different sizes, spectrums, et cetera. The follow-up to it was, have you ever done an impactful project and what did it look like? And 84% of that 91 said they've never worked on an impactful project. And heartbreaking, right? Ultimately. So last week I got a chance to sit with probably about 200 kids between Thursday and Friday. And it was amazing. It was like one of those really, really fun days. What we're hearing is so many things that you're echoing now of we want to use AI. All we hear is cheating. We're focused on reading and math and literacy. What else can we do here? And they all knew what they wanted to do after school. So interesting. One's going on to be an editor. One's working in cybersecurity. One wants to be, a sports director. Like all these great, fun things for kids. And I find they're being weighed down by the traditional now. One of the really interesting things that our work is focused on at Beluga as of late is around community connections. And I think that's a really hard thing, especially for schools to figure out how do we connect with community insiders and
Yeah.
professionals and activists. What do you think teachers can do to bring community to their classroom?
So I think they can see community as part of the learning conditions. When I work with nonprofits in Africa, I treat them as the innovators. We look at them as the innovators. The people who are closest to the challenges and trying to develop solutions are innovators. And so when we look at community as helping to shape project opportunities, we treat them differently and we invite them in differently. And I think that's really important. Again, the intentions of how we elevate different stakeholders. So I think seeing community partners as potential projects, maybe you can invite 5 different or 3 different community groups, have them talk about their work, and then have that inspire projects without making any promises, without having any risk. We have these preconceptions, right, about what's appropriate, about where there are lines and boundaries, and getting close to groups and challenges is the best way to inspire students. And you can do that through Zoom calls. You can do that through inviting people in or going out to see organizations. We just have to see it a little bit differently, I think.
If I were to ask, it would be great for teachers to have PD around helping students use AI in school. You know, speak to that, Mayor?
Yeah, so my team at UB is working on this at the university. Similar issues. Most of the focus is around integrity and cheating. The way that we're doing this is we have some tablets, some iPads, and we have loaded up some common AI tools, and we call it Explore AI. And we just have topics and we engage around different uses like role playing, problem solving. So, this idea of creating, you often hear people talk about a sandbox, which is a safe place where you can play. Experiential learning is a great area to introduce AI because it isn't seen as high risk. So, you can start by exploring how you would use it in that respect. We're having a course come out on AI literacy. You can have some of your faculty participate in a fellowship or an institute. I think folks need to get comfortable with AI and they need to see it as a tool. I see another one. Did you want to read that? Oh, it's gone. What was that question?
Hillary was just commenting. She mentioned to Evan and I that her CEO was uncomfortable with AI and on a personal mission to show him just the power and how quickly it can help you do things and embolden your creativity and empower you.
Yeah, and if you look at Pearl, so if you think about where you can use AI with Pearl, you can use it for preparation because you can explore a topic and get all sorts of information. You can actually ask AI to help you backward map and think of a project outcome and connect it with the curriculum. You can help connect it with emerging career goals. I did a workshop on integrating AI into project-based learning with Pearl. So really you can try and you can play, and then as you play, you start to get some ideas. And I think that's the way to do it is through play, right? Through experiential learning.
Yeah, Verna commented it's an amazing tool. We should teach our students how to use it. And for me, it's been a great sounding board as somebody who questions myself.
Yeah.
I like having that validator of, is this something I'm posting here corny? And when it's like, no, this is great. It's really heartwarming. Good job.
Yeah, it's validating, right? But you can also use it to sort of say, they call it personas, but you could literally come up with a proposal and you could ask the AI to review it from the standpoint of a critical principle or somebody who doesn't believe in experiential learning and is looking for reasons to say no. Like you can actually ask it to look at it from that perspective and give you feedback and then think about how to frame it differently. So the idea is if it's your content, if you're the content creator, it can be a really useful tool in helping you build on it. If you're using it for tests or just for getting information, obviously there's some real dangers, but it's an exciting tool for co-creation and all sorts of pattern recognition and such.
Well, I'm
So,
going to brag on Hillary for a second and talk about one of the capstone projects that I'm aware of
yeah. Okay.
that just came through our inbox. Hillary's creating an augmented or virtual reality program centered around local tribal knowledge. And she's going to find a tribal keeper recorded with 360-degree cameras to
Mm-hmm.
create this experience where students can sit down and sit with the keeper and access knowledge and have that 360 experience in an augmented reality.
That's
And to me,
awesome.
thinking about Pearl, it was something like that. That just sounds.
Yeah, so some quick thoughts, and it's fun to workshop these. So if we had more time, I could do this with you. But you could think about it, from the student standpoint. Once you have that idea, which is a really amazing idea, and you've got to figure out how you're going to do it. If you think about the student going through Pearl and what are they going to bring to the experience, right? So if you're developing the content and you're developing the visual media experience, what can students do then to prepare there. And I would suggest, there's a lot of really cool stuff around GIS mapping and Google Earth and Globe where you can go into communities and do some of the work around it. And then thinking about what they can produce that is going to not only connect with their interests and their goals, but help you continue to build on it. And I would also suggest digital librarians. Librarians are amazing partners. As we go into this work, our librarian is really into AR and VR, and AI can help you think about how to set things up, how to do things. People are coding, people are creating websites and things that they never thought that they could do. And yes, leveraging, building and building. That's a fantastic idea. It also connects with narrative development, storytelling, digital storytelling. Really exciting.
Some of these capstone projects that are starting to develop are really cool. I mean, everything from the one that was just mentioned to community gardens because there's a food desert taking place, to a mental health curriculum, to a repository of active programming for early age learners. Like just really fun stuff that is hitting upon those knowledge points. What comes next for these individuals, right? And I think that's the big thing that, as Thinkering, we're constantly thinking about too.
Mhm.
We have this great group of educators. This is just the starting.
Yeah.
Like, how do we make this sustainable? What does it look like implemented? And how do we actually create shifts in our communities?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question. I think getting started is the most important part, but then supporting the ecosystem as it develops. So, as they develop these projects and try them out, you want to create a place where you can come back and build, as well as supporting the idea generation. These are amazing for their students, but they also have potential for other students. And there are teachers that in schools that might not have the opportunity to really dive into this work. So you start thinking about what the teachers create and how to support them in sharing that with other communities. And that's what we're doing. We're creating a center for experiential learning in Nigeria that will be the hub. And as teachers innovate, which is exactly what you're doing, they could turn into kits. They can turn into resources for other schools and teachers. And then you start to see sort of the catalytic nature. I guarantee that you will not be able to stop. You probably haven't ever stopped, right? The ideas just keep flowing and you can't stop yourself, right? And so you become an engine of innovation because you are innovating within systems that, let's be honest, are kind of stuck and broken, but you're still innovating, right? And Evan and Jim and Thinkering has created a space for that. And as we create these spaces, we have to figure out then how to maximize our impact and connect it back with schools. So I would say keep going. I would love to be involved. I would love to see what comes out of this and be a resource, certainly in any way that you see. I think it's fantastic and I can't wait to see what you guys do.
Appreciate that. Mara, on that side, I know we're getting to the time, but the big thing, my biggest takeaway is let someone borrow your care. I think that is just so relevant today in education and just our world in general. How do we create these communities with bridges instead of barriers? And it starts with teachers first. So we greatly appreciate your time. We'll share this recording out to the group. Mara's in our Slack. So feel free, if you guys could find her, shoot her a message. We'll get you connected as well. But we greatly appreciate everyone here and just, this thinkering type of mentality of what can we think about and how do we play and change some things as well. So Mara, thanks for your time today. You want to drop in anywhere they could find you as well, aside from just Slack?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active. So if you message and connect with me there, I'll get right back to you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great rest of the day.